12th, 2025, an air accident shook the world. Air India Flight 171, departing from Ahmedabad, India, to London, crashed just minutes after takeoff. The entire plane burst into flames after crashing into a dormitory, making it one of the worst air disasters in India's history. There were 242 people on board, including citizens of India, Britain, Portugal, and Canada, but only one survived, a 40-year-old man named Vishwash Kumar Ramesh. He was sitting in seat 11A, a seemingly normal seat, but it turned out to be the only place in the sea of fire and shattered steel that offered a chance of survival. How could a person survive among hundreds of corpses? What happened in the air in just a few short minutes? And how could a modern aircraft like the Boeing 787 crash so tragically? The story you are about to hear is not a Hollywood movie. It is a true story that has brought millions of people to tears. Vishwash Kumar Ramesh, the name that suddenly became the center of the world after the accident. He was a 40-year-old businessman, British but of Indian origin, who was returning to his hometown of Ahmedabad to visit relatives and attend a family reunion. He was scheduled to return to London on Air India Flight 171 in the early morning of June 12th, along with 241 passengers and crew. The plane, a Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner, was a pride of modern aviation technology, expected to provide a safe, smooth trip across the continent. But less than 10 minutes after takeoff, the plane encountered problems. According to radar data, it plunged at a dizzying speed before losing signal completely. The entire flight, carrying 169 Indians, 53 Britons, 7 Portuguese, and 1 Canadian, including children, the elderly, businessmen, international students, and tourists, had no chance of survival. In the middle cabin, seat 11A was located near the emergency exit, and it was the moment of explosion that caused the fuselage to split open in this area. In that unexpected situation, Vishwash was thrown out of the plane before the rest of the plane exploded violently. He was seriously injured, but still breathing when the rescue team arrived. That one person could survive a disaster where everyone else died. That is something that not only the aviation industry, but also humanity must ask. Is this luck, a miracle, or a reminder? On June 12, 2025, Air India Flight 171 was about to take off from Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel International Airport, Ahmedabad, India, at 1:32 p.m. local time. The sky was clear, there was no sign of turbulence, visibility was good, and meteorological conditions were perfect for the nearly 9-hour flight to London Gatwick. The plane, a Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner, was carrying 242 people, including 12 crew members and 230 passengers of various nationalities. In the passenger cabin, no one could have imagined that in just a few minutes, all the laughter, words, and dreams of that journey would be wiped out in a sea of fire. Just 6 minutes after takeoff, the air traffic control tower in Ahmedabad detected an unusual altitude fluctuation signal from the plane. Radar signals showed that the 787 was experiencing a vertical stability problem, showing signs of a slight roll. From the cockpit, the flight crew transmitted an emergency message, a fault related to the left thrust control, potentially affecting the number 1 engine. Although the severity was not yet known, the captain prepared for an emergency turn. But before that decision could be made, the worst-case scenario occurred. The plane suddenly tilted sharply, then lost an altitude at a terrifying speed. At 13:38, just 6 minutes after leaving the runway, the plane plummeted into a densely populated residential area in Magani Nagar, an area near BJ Medical College. The impact was so strong that the fuselage was crushed, burning like a giant torch in broad daylight. Part of the fuselage penetrated the college's 3-story dormitory building, causing almost an entire wing to collapse. Spilled fuel caused fires that spread quickly to surrounding houses. Witnesses reported seeing a huge object burning like the sun falling, accompanied by a loud explosion and metal debris flying hundreds of meters away. As soon as the news was reported, hundreds of firefighters, police, and medical staff were mobilized to the scene. They had to fight thick smoke, heat reaching hundreds of degrees Celsius, and the risk of further collapse from the affected structures. The scene at that time was a real nightmare. Charred bodies, debris embedded in the walls, cries and screams echoing endlessly. While searching for the bodies, a member of the rescue team suddenly heard a faint moan from a pile of wreckage far from the main body of the plane. When the cleanup team approached, they found a man still breathing, trapped between two tightly twisted metal plates, his face covered in blood, his body badly burned, but still conscious. That man was Vishwash Kumar Ramesh. Miraculously, the location where he was found was more than 40 meters from the main body of the plane. After analyzing the scene, experts determined that the sudden pressure as the plane began to break up created a powerful suction through the exit area. And that seat 11A, where Vishwash was sitting, was the point where it was torn apart. It was this shock of pressure that threw him out through the hole, inadvertently saving him from the fire that engulfed the entire fuselage just seconds later. The remaining 241 people, including the entire crew, died at the scene or succumbed to serious injuries. Immediately after the crash, the Indian government declared a national emergency. Air accident investigation units, the military and forensic teams were urgently mobilized. Within 24 hours, a special investigation team comprising experts from the Indian AAIB, the USNTSB, and the UKAAIB was formed, given the seriousness of the accident involving a US-made Boeing aircraft with passengers from multiple countries. The black boxes, including the cockpit voice recorder, CVR, and flight data recorder, FDR, were found intact amid the ashes and were flown to New Delhi for data extraction. Initial investigations have ruled out terrorism as there were no signs of external interference, but have not ruled out a serious technical or operational failure. This is not just a national tragedy, it is a global loss, India's aviation minister said at his first press conference. We will not rest until we find out the exact cause. Meanwhile, in London, the British Foreign Office confirmed that 53 British citizens were on board the plane, many of them Indian families on vacation. A hotline was set up for relatives to contact for information. The British government sent an emergency support team to Ahmedabad and worked with Air India to repatriate the victims' ashes. In the following days, an atmosphere of mourning enveloped both countries. Memorials were held in many cities from Mumbai, Delhi to Birmingham and Leicester. Notably in London, in front of the Air India headquarters, hundreds of candles were lit with the words, "Gone too soon. The flight never arrived." Investigators have also questioned the maintenance status of the Boeing 787-8, registered as VTANB, which has been in Air India's fleet since 2017. According to technical records, the plane had last undergone major maintenance in March 2025. However, several internal staff members revealed that before the crash, the plane had reported faults with the fuel sensor and cabin pressure regulator. But they were not thoroughly addressed. This raised public concerns about the airline's safety procedures and responsibilities. In response to public pressure, Air India announced the suspension of its entire 787-8 fleet for re-inspection, and that it was fully cooperating with the investigation. While the world awaits the official conclusion, only one person, Vishwash, has the most vivid memory of that fateful moment. He was treated in the intensive care unit under security supervision as the only key witness. The question that has been on the minds of millions is, does he remember anything from the last minute in the plane? Or is it just the darkness and the thunderous explosion of fate?
वो मेरे नज़रों के सब सामने हुआ था। मेरे खुद को भी बिलीव नहीं होता कि मैं कैसे उसमें से जिंदा बाहर निकला, क्योंकि थोड़ा टाइम लिए कि तो मेरे को लगा था कि मैं भी मरने वाला हूँ, लेकिन जब मेरी आँख खुल के मैं देखा ना तो मुझे लगा मैं जिंदा हूँ। तो मैंने ट्राई किया, जब मेरी सीट थे वो मेरी बेल्ट निकाला, मैंने वो ट्राई किया जहाँ से निकल सकता वहाँ से, तो मैं निकल गया वहाँ से। मेरे नज़रों के सामने एयर होस्टल और दूसरे आंटी अंकल सभी उसमें मिस हो गए थे सभी, क्योंकि आई थिंक मेरे को जब मैं जो साइड पे था ना, वो साइड हॉस्टल पे नहीं लैंड हुई थी, हॉस्टल के जो ग्राउंड फ्लोर है ना जैसे नीचे, वहाँ लैंड हुई थी। तो मुझे दूसरे के बारे में मेरे को पता नहीं, लेकिन मैं जहाँ लैंड हुआ था ना वो नीचे की साइड थी, तो जब वहाँ थोड़ा पेस भी था प्लेन के जब बाहर, तो जब जैसे मेरा डोर टूटा ना सब, तो मैंने देखा ना जब सामने कि थोड़ा इधर पेस है, मैं ट्राई कर सकता हूँ निकलने के लिए, तो मैंने ट्राई किया निकलने के लिए, तो फिर मैं निकल गया उधर, क्योंकि अपोजिट साइड पे था ना वो बिल्डिंग का वो था ना दीवार, तो उधर से कोई शायद नहीं निकल सका होगा।
Amidst the hundreds of corpses and the rubble, Vishwash Kumar Ramesh is considered a miracle. But for him, survival is not a matter of luck, but a psychological sentence. He woke up in the hospital, his body covered in burns, aching and panicked by haunting sounds still echoing in his head. I heard screams, the sound of metal ripping, and then everything disappeared in a blinding white light. "I don't know why I'm alive," he said in his first interview, his voice trembling. Many call him the chosen one, but for Vishwash, he sees himself as a bearer of the painful memories of 241 departed souls. Every time he closes his eyes, it's a flight that never landed. The Air India 171 crash was not an isolated incident. It is a stark reminder that no matter how advanced the technology, no matter how famous the airline, humans are still the most fragile creatures in the vast sky. We always believe in safe flights, in systems and engineers, but just a small mistake, a mechanical failure, or a slow decision can turn hope into disaster. Vishwash's survival is not the end, but an open question for the entire aviation industry. What was the problem? Which system went wrong? And did the victims die from something that could have been prevented? Flight AI-171 never reached London, but its story will live on as a bitter lesson, as a stick of incense for those who have passed away, and as a wake-up call so that no one has to survive alone after a disaster. What do you think about fate and survival? Share in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to follow true stories that make the whole world silent, just to listen.